Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, guys. Peace. Hey guys, just finished watching Legion, Season 2, Episode 5, Chapter 13. Wow, what an episode. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. It was pretty good, really good episode. So it starts off with Lenny being questioned by Clark in Division 3, since we saw her show up in last week's episode right at the beginning. Right at the end of last week's episode, actually. So that she's being questioned. She's in like an upside down room where the room starts off in one way and then the camera flips and there's some tech and some stuff that's all upside down, some words and stuff that are upside down, which is interesting. I never really explained that, but that was quite cool. Lenny said that Lenny is, knows Farouk knows where his body is, but ends up being a different body is what she thinks she says, but we're not entirely sure what she knows is true. Oliver is driving to find the body. Lenny is in a new body. We find that one out. And Wallace tries to read her mind, and he finds out that he's been infected and everyone's been and stuff. That doesn't work out for him. And then they find out, and then we get the John Hamm voiceover again for when we encounter a coincidence, we see it as conspiracy. That was quite interesting idea, seeing that. So that's going to be cool to see how that affects the show. I mean, they have these different things that are kind of out of context, out of the thing, but they kind of barely just connect to the show, setting up themes, and I kind of like the way they do that before this show, and it's quite interesting with that. And David can't tell the difference. David shows up and decides to finally get to see her. It's Sid, actually, Barrett is not even in this episode, but David shows up and tries to talk. He's talking to Lenny, and the difference between Lenny and the Shadow King, he can't tell the difference between inside of her head, and it's interesting with that because then we see David's memories inside of there and stuff, and it's quite interesting to see that. And it's interesting because Lenny was Benny, the real person that we saw in last season. Lenny in the Audrey Plaza version, the female version of it, was actually just the Shadow King. So I think this is quite interesting, playing with that, how he was, it was originally, if I'm not mistaken, actually a guy, because it was revealed to be like that in the first season. It was revealed that Audrey Plaza's character was always a guy. It was actually Benny, and he was just, it was changed inside of David's head to see him as Lenny, and that's why when we see this person, it's actually Lenny, that she never really had a body. So that was quite interesting with that, playing with that idea and seeing all that. And that was quite interesting with that, because I mean, there was a Lenny that was only in that was in the wall type thing, as we talk about here, but really we didn't see too much of her. It was always kind of switched. So that was interesting with that, and the fact that Farouk actually ends up going to find David's sister, and he ends up turning her into Lenny. He ends up turning turning Amy into Lenny type thing, and that was really an interesting idea. And the acting between both actresses was just on par. It was perfect, and it was the different faces that they did and stuff was quite interesting. Seeing that, it was quite cool seeing that transformation, and the special effects and all this was just on point. I mean, they are cutting away in between it, so you can see this episode is definitely a little bit on the lower budget, because there's not really grandiose spectacles and stuff. A lot of it was just kind of it was just kind of wiring and floating and stuff, but the way they pulled it off really was a good episode. So it's interesting with this show how they do it. It seems like it doesn't have a $100 million budget for the whole all episodes or anything, no movie budget or anything, but the way they do it, they're still able to make it, and it still gives it a movie quality feel to it. So I think it's quite interesting the way they do that. And in this episode, it was quite cool seeing that. And with a more quiet episode like this, that's really not CGI heavy too much. I mean, a few special effects, but that was actually done on set, with like wiring and all that stuff. But other than that, there's not many special effects, and I kind of like that, the way they did that in this episode. So it was quite interesting seeing that. You didn't get any of Sid Barrett, neither current Sid Barrett or future, nothing about that. So that's going to be cool to see how at the end of this episode, with David kind of mad that Farouk, killed. It looked like he killed David's sister, Amy. and it's gonna be cool to see how he ends up dealing with this, how this affects the future, and how is with him deciding to go after Farouk and no longer wanting to help Farouk. Is future Sid gonna come back and say, whoa, you need to help her? I know about this. I know this reveal. I know this is painful and stuff. But you still have to help him. So I think that's going to be cool to see how they all play around with that. So all in all, this episode was a really fun episode. Definitely can't wait to see where things go with this. It looks like next week's episode, based on the trailer, is going to be dealing a little bit with David and not knowing who he is or something again. Going back to David's more David-centric episodes. So that'll be cool to see that. And where things go from here. So here was really cool. I'm glad that they have set it up so that Aubrey Plaza can stick around, because she is a great actress in this show. She's been phenomenal in this, one of the best in the show. At some point, I would even say she's even better than Dan Stevens, just because she gets more to do. She gets more time to really shine and do things. Whereas now that David's no longer have the Shadow King inside of him, he's a little bit more calmer, where she still has that thing, that makes her a little bit crazy, and I think it's quite fun seeing Aubrey Plaza playing with that. So it's all really good, and I'm glad that they set this up so that they can have her continue on and stay and keep Aubrey Plaza on the show. So let me know what you think, guys, about this episode in the comments below. Season 2, Episode 5, Chapter 13 of Legion, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.
I'm Captain America, here to talk to you about one of the most valuable traits a soldier or student can have.
Subscribing.
Sometimes subscribing is the key to victory. Sometimes it leads to very little, and it seems like it's not worth it. And you wonder why you waited so long for something so disappointing. How many more of these?
You're still here.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, guys. Peace.
It's over.